Samson's mother had done. When that day came that she was supposed to produce what God had placed inside of her, she was able to bear down and birth greatness. Why? Because she had already seen a few mountains. She had already been through a few battles. She had already suffered a few hardships in her life. That's why she had the strength to bear down and produce what God had placed inside of her. And she bare down and produced Samson. Now, we all know Samson. We've all heard the story about Samson. He's a man that was highly favored. He's a man that was destined by God. He was known for his supernatural strength. Samson was called to deliver the children of Israel out of bondage to the Philistines. He was called to be a deliverer, yet Samson has a major problem. He has a problem that prevents him from being able to live from the inside out. Samson can do for others what he cannot do for himself. He can deliver other people, but he cannot deliver himself. He can rescue others, but he cannot rescue himself. He can fight other people's battles, but he cannot fight his own battles. You know what I'm talking about. You can fix other people's problems. You have an answer for everyone's problem except your own. You can discipline other people's children. Boy, if little Jimmy was mine, he wouldn't be able to sit down for 2 weeks. You have no problem disciplining other people's children, but when it comes to your own, you refuse to discipline them. You have no problem fixing other people's marriage. Well, I tell you what you need to do. You need to go home and give her a piece of your mind. But you have no answer for your own marriage. I can't tell you how much better our churches would run today if everyone concentrated on their own stuff first. If you'd fix your own mess, if you'd deal with your own house, if you'd get your life in order, then maybe you'd find yourself in a position to help someone else out with their stuff. The Bible says, "Why beholdest thou the speck that is in thy brother's eye, when thou hast a beam in thine own eye? First remove the beam out of thine own eye, then thou shalt see clearly to remove the speck out of thy brother's eye." What's that saying? It's simply saying this: concentrate on your own stuff first. Get your own life in order. If you can't resolve your own issues, what makes you think you can help anyone with their issues? If you can't deal with your own baggage, what makes you think that you can help someone else deal with their baggage? See, leadership, church leadership, really needs to grasp this concept, because every now and then we have a tendency to neglect our own in order to help others with theirs. We sometimes neglect our own children in order to help other people with their children. We sometimes neglect our own marriage in order to help other people with their marriage. But the Bible says, "He that provideth not for his own is worse than an infidel," which simply means you have the responsibility to you and yours first. Because if you cannot take care of yourself, you will not be any good for anyone. If you can't deal with your own problems, you'll never find yourself in a position to help anyone else with theirs. See, Samson has this problem. He cannot do for himself what he does for others. But before we highlight Samson's bad attributes, before we highlight the bad times in his life, I want to highlight a good time in Samson's life, a time when he was being led by the Spirit of the Lord. Judges chapter 13 verse 25 says, "And the Spirit of the Lord began to move him at times in the camp of Dan between Zorah and Eshtaol. As a young man, Samson did many mighty things through the Spirit of the Lord." Notice that I said through the Spirit of the Lord. You see, I don't believe that Samson had rippling muscles and bulging biceps, because if he had these physical signs of strength, they wouldn't have asked him, "Wherein does thy strength lieth?" But because he didn't look strong, Because he didn't have those physical signs of strength, they knew that his strength had to come from another source. That source being the Spirit of the Lord. Can I tell you tonight that you don't have to look strong to be strong? Can I tell you that if you have the Spirit of the Lord inside of you, you have something that will enable you to do more than you ever thought you could do? The Spirit of the Lord will enable that single mother to raise 3 children all by herself. The Spirit of the Lord will enable you to climb further than you thought you could ever climb, to push farther than you ever thought you could push, to fight longer than you ever thought you could fight. You don't have to look strong to be strong. If you have the Spirit of the Lord inside of you, there is no chain that can bind you. There is no disease that can oppress you. There is nothing that can hold you down if you are filled with the Spirit of the Lord.